Welcome to the Fearfully and Wonderfully Me podcast, a podcast designed to help you increase your influence, develop your leadership, and maximize your results. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode, continuing our series on the elements of personal growth and transformation from my book, Fearfully and Wonderfully Me. Today's episode is on the element of self-care, and our affirmation for this episode is I am disciplined. Now, this is one of those things that I think everyone has struggled with at some point, and maybe we still struggle with it, right? Being disciplined and having discipline is something that we work toward because we're not always going to get it right. And that's okay. But having discipline is the key to foundation to success, right? Whatever we want to accomplish, whether it's graduating from college or getting healthy or getting fit or writing a book, whatever it is that you want to accomplish, that is going to require some discipline, some self-discipline. Because when we set goals for ourselves and we work to achieve them, we build our self-confidence. But the thing is, you're not always going to feel like taking action toward those goals. And honestly, it's Andy Stanley who said, your feelings are terrible leaders because you won't always feel like putting the work in. There are going to be days when you don't feel like getting up an extra hour early to write your book or write a chapter in your book. There's going to be days when you don't feel like getting up early to exercise. There are going to be days when you don't feel like staying up late when all the kids are in bed so that you can work on building your business. Right? There are going to be times when you don't feel like it. You know, a question that I get a lot is, why do I run marathons? And, let's be honest. The actual last few minutes of running a marathon is fun, sure. But most of the marathon itself is not really fun, and the training to run a marathon is not really fun. Now, there are certain elements that I absolutely enjoy, but there are times when you train for and then run a 26-mile race. There are going to be times when you are sore and you don't feel like getting up to run. Maybe it's raining and you're supposed to get up and go run. And or just times when you're tired. And so there are going to be a lot of times that you don't feel like it. And there are a lot of times when I don't feel like it, right? When I set a goal and I have a race coming up, there are times that I'm like, man, today I just don't want to. But the reason I set myself that goal and I work towards it to accomplish it is because self-discipline in one area of life will help us be more disciplined in other areas of life. So when I build my self-discipline in the physical dimension of life and I, work to overcome those days when, man, I don't feel like it, but I do it anyway, then that helps me in other dimensions of life as well. And it's just, as people, you always get the whole person, right? You cannot develop yourself in one area of life without growing in other areas of life. It's just the way it is. You pick up one coin, but you get both sides of the coin. And that can work for us and it can also work against us. So learning to leverage it and have it work for you is the key. Self-discipline is all about giving yourself a directive to do something that you want to do and then doing it. That's all it is. Or a directive not to do something that you want to do and then doing it, right? It means sacrificing the fun or enjoyment or the pleasure of the moment in order to accomplish and achieve something in the future. You've heard the term delayed gratification. It's kind of a psychological term that talks about children who are able to delay gratification in the moment for something they want in the future tend to be more successful. It's a fancy way of just saying self-discipline helps us be more successful because no one really likes to sacrifice in the moment. We don't. No one wants to sacrifice in the moment. It's not fun to sacrifice in the moment, because the thing about sacrifice is you feel the loss now, and you haven't yet achieved the gain in the future that you're working towards, right? And that's not fun. Everyone loves the reward, but nobody loves sacrificing in the moment to get it. Now, here's the thing. It's easier to be self-disciplined when there's a clear reason why, right? When you have a clear vision of what you're working for, then it's much easier to sacrifice in the moment. Um, I remember earlier this year, much earlier this year, Mac and I were traveling, and it was the last 10 days or so before my last marathon. So my last marathon was in March, and it was right before all of the pandemic broke out, and all of the concerns over COVID. And it was one of our last trips before all of that happened, and the world stopped turning for a few months. And we were in Toronto, Canada, up there to speak. And what we did was we're speaking on like a Tuesday, I think, and we took a few days over or the weekend before, because we had never been to Toronto. And we wanted to explore the city and do some sightseeing, and just take advantage of the fact that we were up there. So it's one of the things that we enjoy doing when we travel. So um, it was pretty neat to just see all the city and sightseeing and things like that. But one of our favorite things to do, particularly Mac's favorite thing to do when we're traveling, is try out like new places, explore new places to eat. We try to find local places to eat, staying away from just a chain restaurants that honestly we could get back here in the United States, right? The restaurants are very similar. The chain restaurants in Toronto are very similar to what you might find here in the United States. And so, we try to avoid that because we could have that anytime, but trying to seek out different things and try some local things and local places and that kind of thing. And I don't remember exactly where we were, because we were driving and exploring and doing some sightseeing, so we weren't actually in this city. Um, and we stopped to have lunch at this roadside cafe, and it was just kind of a local place. It was just a kind of a local diner, and they had something on the menu I'd never heard of before, but it was supposed to be kind of a local dish, and I can't even pronounce what they actually called it, but I didn't know what it was, and so I had to ask. And it was just kind of one of their local dishes, and from what I gather, it's basically like a potato dumpling filled with cheese. And I thought, wow, that sounds incredible. Because who doesn't love, cheesy, salty potatoes, right? That's great. And but as I started to think about it, I'm like, you know what? I really want to try this and sample this, and I want to enjoy it. But I need to be careful and have some discipline here, because in just a week and a half, I've got my marathon coming up, and I want to do well in that race. And what I feed my body is going to make a difference, especially in the last few days going up to the marathon. So I have to be, just very intentional with nutrition leading up to my race, because it does make a difference. Um, and so, I remember trying these. I don't even remember exactly what they were called, but they were basically cheesy potatoes. Um, and then, we ordered it as an appetizer, and I sampled it, and it was delicious. There's no doubt. Um, but and so everywhere we stopped for the next few days had these on the menu. And so for me, the difference in self-discipline is saying, you know what, I can try this and enjoy it, absolutely, but I don't need to have it every meal just because we're up here and it's a local dish, right? Self-discipline is making a decision with your head instead of from your heart or the emotions in the moment, or your habits, which are automatic behaviors. And we're going to talk a lot more on habits in the next couple of podcasts. So that's what self discipline is. It's making those choices proactively with your head instead of reactively with your heart or emotions or automatically through your habits, right? You can't sit around and wait until you feel like doing all of the things that you need to do in order to become the best version of yourself, because you're not always going to feel like it. You don't have that much time. You can't sit around waiting for it, right? Life is too short. You must take action now. And there are going to be days when you don't feel like drinking 8 glasses of water instead of 8 Diet Cokes, right? There are days you're not going to feel like eating salad instead of pizza. There are going to be days when you don't feel like writing a chapter or working on your business or um, working on your networking in LinkedIn, right? Your feelings are terrible leaders. You are not always going to feel like it. Do it anyway. And that's the essence of self-discipline, is giving yourself that command and saying, you know what, this is what's good for me. This is what's going to move me forward in the direction that I want to go. And even though I don't feel like it today, even though it's not easy, even though it's not always fun, I have the value of disciplining myself and working towards that goal. Now, there is absolutely a difference in having self-discipline and recognizing when you need to maybe rethink something or be flexible about something, right? So I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is when there is no excuse and you just don't feel like following through. That's when you need to have self-discipline, not when you need to be flexible because life has changed suddenly and a higher priority has shifted. But when you just truly don't feel like it, and let me promise you, we all have days like that where we just don't feel like it. There are going to be days when those emotions don't serve you well, and you absolutely have the choice to act on them or to act on your value of having discipline for yourself. And it's one of the keys to self care, because you're not always going to feel like drinking water. You're not always going to feel like exercising. You're not always going to feel like reading a book or listening to a personal growth podcast, right? But self-care requires self-discipline, and self-discipline is crucial to self-care because our bodies don't always feel like doing what's good for us, right? Our bodies don't always. It's kind of like our bodies are like that inner 2-year old. The physical body itself just likes enjoyment or pleasure in the moment, right? There's no doubt that we like brownies because they taste good, right? Our physical body is programmed and wired to enjoy physical pleasure and enjoyment in the moment, right? We want to be warm and comfortable because it feels good. Our bodies are programmed to tell us when we aren't warm and comfortable, and some of that is just biological survival. Our bodies are designed to tell us when we're hungry or thirsty because those are things that we need in order to take care of our body. But we're wired so that our physical body seeks comfort, right? It's just it's kind of a term called homeostasis. Our bodies are designed and wired to help us find a comfortable place and stay comfortable. And that's why for me, like running a marathon isn't natural because it pushes you outside of your comfort zone. There is nothing comfortable about running a marathon. Um, there's nothing comfortable about exercising when you don't always feel like it, right? Your body is wired to say, I'm at rest, I'm comfortable, let me stay here. And so that's just a biological fact. Um, but it doesn't always serve us well. And it's recognizing that and being able to differentiate that. and saying, you know what, yes, I'm comfortable here in my warm, fuzzy sweatpants and warm socks. I don't feel like getting up and going to walk outside. I'm going to get hot and sweaty, or maybe it's cold and I don't want to get cold. We've got to be able to differentiate. Caring for ourselves and taking care of ourselves sometimes means getting a little uncomfortable physically, right? Just like personal growth is a little uncomfortable because it stretches us in some way. It means doing things differently, thinking about things differently than we're used to. And that's not always comfortable, right? We as human beings like to be comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that, except that it doesn't serve us well long term all the time. And it's recognizing that and just saying, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice the comfort of the moment for what I want to do and achieve in the future. And that's the that's the critical part of self-discipline and self-care. Recognizing that, yeah, our body feels more comfortable when we're laying up comfortable on the couch instead of doing yoga or walking or running or biking or whatever it is. But my health is dependent on me moving my body a certain amount of time every day, getting my heart rate up, right? That's going to help me with my fitness, with my heart health, with my cardiovascular elements. It's going to help me strengthen my muscles. And a lot of times when we think of self discipline and self care, we think of it as something that it's got to be something huge, right? And so you're like, man, it's intimidating to think of self care and self discipline and exercise because maybe I don't want to commit to going to boot camp, or maybe that's not my thing. You don't have to, right? When it comes to self discipline and self care, it can be as simple as just parking farther away at the grocery store. Park at the end of the row next time you go to buy groceries and get some extra walking in as you walk to the store and walk back out, right? That's an example of where you can have self discipline and practice some self care. Just thinking through ways that you can be more intentional about that, even when you don't, sure, it would feel better to park closer because your body is programmed to not have to put forth any extra effort. But think through those little ways that you can practice self-discipline, and it leads to self-care, and that will strengthen over time. Just like anything, when we are um, trying to build up our muscles, whether it's physical or emotional, start small, and that can lead to bigger goals over time. Small changes are the key to transformation, and I can't stress that enough because the big goals, yeah, it sounds exciting to say, you know what, I'm going to exercise for an hour today. But you don't have to exercise for an hour today to start creating self discipline. You can just say, I'm going to park further away at the grocery store. You can just say, you know what, I'm going to get up and walk around my yard next time I'm on the phone with somebody. Walk around your house, walk around your living room. You can get extra steps in while you're talking to someone on the phone. That's exercise. It also allows you to leverage and maximize your time because you're benefiting from um, doing two things at once. Right. So when you think about self discipline and self care, it doesn't have to be big or intimidating. But just a small goal for yourself can help you be very successful in this element, in this dimension. Now, there again, not always easy to do. You're not always going to feel like it. But maybe self discipline means instead of quitting drinking Diet Coke, for example, because that was one of my things, is just drinking water one meal a day instead of Diet Coke, right? It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. In fact, I think it's easier if it's not an all or nothing for most things, for most of us. Now, there's some situations where all or nothing will serve you better, and you've got to figure out that for you. Um, for example, several years ago, Mac and I did a, a whole 30, which basically is fasting from sugar and dairy and grains and legumes and processed food. So basically, you spend 30 days and you can have whole food, fruits and vegetables, and meats. And that's pretty much it. um, so it's a pretty restrictive 30-day fast from most food groups or food. And so you can have all the fresh fruits and vegetables that you want and lean proteins, but you don't have any of the other things. And so it's certainly an exercise in self-discipline to do that. But their concept behind that is just, for 30 days, not eating any of this. So it's not having a little bit of sugar, it's having no sugar. But that helps you break the addiction to sugar. So it was an interesting exercise. I don't know that I would do it again because I don't eat I don't eat any meat. And really, um, their program is designed to be very heavy on proteins and meats. And nothing wrong with that. It's just not for me. I don't feel my best physically when I eat like that. But it was great to go through that. Now, that was a kind of an all or nothing, right? It was just completely getting away from 100% stopping these foods and these behaviors. Um, and it was designed to be a nutritional reset. So it's designed to go through that for 30 days, figure out where maybe you have some food sensitivities or how you feel when you're not eating processed food. And it allows you to get all of that out of your system for 30 days. And then slowly you can reintroduce a food group. So maybe you have some dairy on day 31 or day 32, whatever it is, and you see how your body responds. And then the next couple of days, you might re-add some grains to your diet, or slowly reintroducing some of those foods that you fasted from for 30 days, and you see how your body responds. So it was an interesting exercise and definitely helped create some discipline around how we eat. It definitely changed a lot of how we eat. We don't have a lot of snacks in the house anymore. So once we got away from a lot of that, it was much easier to stay away from it because 100% you get rid of it for 30 days and you just see how good you can feel when you do that. Um, so there are some things where it's an all or nothing and that serves you better. But there are also opportunities where you're like, you know what, I don't have to be all or nothing in this goal. Um, maybe it means exercising for 5 minutes a day. Exercise is intimidating for a lot of people, but you just need to get up and move your body. Just if you could get 30 minutes a day, right? That's enough to help improve your health. But it doesn't have to be 30 minutes all at once, even. Um, but let me tell you, I talk about exercise a lot because I've seen how powerful it is. And the thing about exercise is it helps us feel better, and you will have more energy when you exercise because it's going to help you feel better. It's going to create positive energy in your body. You need to move your body a certain amount every day. Um, but it could look like 5 minutes every hour until you get to 30 minutes, right? Figure out what works best for you. When it comes to having self-discipline and taking care of yourself, there are so many different ways. The ways that you can accomplish that and build more discipline into your day and your routine are as varied as you are. There is no right or wrong way to do it. It's just being intentional about doing it. And the more intention we can bring to this, the easier it is to leverage it and to build it into our life and take care of ourselves in so many dimensions of life. So until next time.